Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the City Commission meeting of May 13th. We will start with an invocation. I'd also just like to say for the record, Julio De Arcos passed this past week, and Julio, although people thought Julio was the actual mayor of Winter Park, even though he only lived here about 8 years. So just if we could have a moment of silence during the invocation, that would be wonderful in memory of Julio, who was just a great guy. And also we have Dr. Bates. Dr. Bates, are you here? I didn't see you come in. No, so we're going to have our own Wes Hamill lead us in invocation, and if you all would remain standing after the invocation for the Pledge of Allegiance, we'd appreciate it. Wes.
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come before you mindful of your goodness and mercy for the privileges that we enjoy in this country, in this community that we serve. Thank you for the rain today. Thank you for Julio and for his life of service and good times that we got to have and the benefits and his interest in our community. Thank you for the commitment of our elected officials, staff, citizens that are here, and just ask for your blessings upon our activities this evening. Ask for wisdom in all that is done, that it may honor you and better the community. And we ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wes, thank you very much. Randy, any changes to the agenda? I do see that we've tabled 11B until June 10th. Any other changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay, great. With that, we'll look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Well, this is going to be a long meeting.
I'm going to push my button.
Okay, so we'll also recognize that Commissioner Cooper is not in attendance. Please let the record show that tonight, and we wish her well on her trip. Hal George, your turn, sir. I'm going to ask Mr. George, who is the Orange County appointee to the Winter Park CRA, to come to the podium and introduce our new, and also member, the chair of the Housing Authority.
There you go.
Hal.
It will be a long meeting, right? Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today. I am here representing the Winter Park Housing Authority in my role as chairman. And as most of you know, the Housing Authority consists of a little over 700 units that we manage. Affordable housing for the most part, 119 of which are public housing. But we are run by our executive director, and our executive director for the last 7 or 8 years, Pat Rice, retired this past year at the end of the year. And so we had a national search, and we had some wonderful candidates, and we ended up selecting a candidate that is here right in our own backyard, who's come to us from the Seminole County Housing Authority. And I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce you all to LaShonda Lovett. Ask LaShonda to come up.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you this afternoon. I'm appreciative to be the individual that the board chose to represent the group of people that make up the Winter Park Housing Authority. So I am truly grateful for that. I would like to invite you and the community at large to come in and visit us and see what we've done thus far. As Hal has kind of stated, we have 6 properties, 706 residents that we serve. 250 are considered elderly and disabled. So I would like to invite you to come out, visit us, get to know us. We would like to start the conversation with you about our goals and our vision for the future and what our challenges are going forward. So I'll be leaving my contact information for you, and please come out and visit us. Thank you.
We will. Thank you and welcome.
I'd like to steal the floor for just a moment
Sure.
and extend an invitation to all of you. We have now representing Habitat for Humanity. We have our 55th Habitat dedication this Saturday, 815 West Comstock at 10:30 in the morning. We'll be honoring students from Trinity Prep, which is their 20th house that they've sponsored, as well as the Habitat group from Winter Park High School. So if any of you are here and available to come out, we'd love to have you join us. So, and thank you.
Thank you, Hal.
Thank you.
You wear many hats in this community. We appreciate every one of them. Thank you. Now, Principal Arnold, will you join me?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. So out of all my responsibilities, this is by far my favorite, the opportunity to recognize our students and our staff. We have amazing students and amazing staff. We're here today to recognize some state champions. Before we do that, I want to tell you a little bit about our overall athletic program. Since 1997, the state has awarded an all-sports award across the state. Winter Park High School has received first place 10 out of those years and second place 8 out of those years. So, and in the top 5, 3 others. So there's only 1 year out of the 23 years the award has been given that we were not in the top 5 for the best athletic program in the state. For the past 16 years, we've had the same individual leading our athletic program. And at the end of this year, he is retiring. Mike Brown, can you join me up here, please? Mike Brown has been the athletic director for 16 years. He has served the students, the staff, and the community of Winter Park for 33 years, and he will retire at the end of this year. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you. Mike, I wish we could have picked a better day. I think most of you guys would have been rained out today in Winter Park. But it is my pleasure to proclaim today Michael Brown Day in the city of Winter Park. Whereas, starting out as a chemistry teacher in 1987, Athletic Director Michael Brown will be retiring from Winter Park High School after 32 years. And whereas Brown has contributed to the school winning 8 FHSAA Floyd E. Lay Sunshine Cup overall all-sports awards, an award that recognizes the best overall sports program in the state. And whereas he has also contributed to the school, winning 4 boys as well as 7 girls FHSAA Floyd E. Lay Sunshine Cup All Sports Awards. And whereas Brown goes above and beyond what is expected to make sure all athletic teams at Winter Park High School are performing to the highest standards, as well as abiding by all FHSAA rules and procedures. And whereas Brown always says the program is as successful as it is because of the hard work put in by the coaches and athletes. And whereas Winter Park High School athletes would not have become the champions they are without him. Now, therefore, I, Steve Leary, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the great city of Winter Park in the state of Florida, do hereby proclaim Monday, May 13th, 2019, to be Michael Brown Day in the city of Winter Park, Florida. Mike, congratulations on everything, your success, and your retirement. The microphone is yours, sir.
Well, I didn't come down here for this today, but I do appreciate it. It's very much appreciated. I came down here to recognize our kids because they're the ones that are the true athletes and the ones that are the whole reason for the success of this program. We have some great coaches. We have some excellent athletes. So my intention today was to come down here and recognize those. So
We wouldn't have gotten you down here if we told you this was about.
well, I appreciate it. But unless there's anything else, I would like to go ahead and start with the
Yes, sir.
athletes.
It is your day. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, let's get a picture over here. Teresa, would you? Let me pull this out for Mike in the middle. Where do you want us, Teresa? You line us up.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. And again. 1, 2, 3.
All right, I would like to start with our
track program, we had an individual who won the state pole vault this year, so I'd like to have Coach McWilliams come up and introduce Elizabeth, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us today. I'm really proud of this athlete, Elizabeth Nix. She actually earned her 10th state championship, 9 in the state of Alabama, and her first here in the state of Florida. This year, she was the 4A state champion in the pole vault. Her personal best is 12 feet 3 inches, so you can imagine how tall you are, how far she leaps into the air with the pole. She will be competing next year at Ole Miss in both pole vault and hopefully heptathlon. She's helped the Wildcats last year secure a state runner-up team trophy, our first in school history in track and field for the girls team. And she not only does the pole vault, but she was our anchor of the 4x4, anchor of the 4x1, made the state in that 4x4, but also the 100 hurdles, the long jump, the high jump, the shot put. She can do it all, and she can do it all really well. So she's also an amazing student and an amazing leader and captain of our team. In this year's Winter Park High School's Athlete of the Year for the females. So it's Elizabeth Nix of Winter Park. Thank you.
Picture up front?
I think they usually try to get everybody together.
There we go. Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. And again. 1, 2, 3. Pass it on.
1, 2, 3. We're good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Appreciate that.
All right, next, I would like to introduce our boys golf team who took the first state championship of our school's history for boys golf. So if I could have Coach Robinson come up.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commission. Thank you. It's an absolute honor to be here. It's especially cool for me as a Winter Park alum. I've been leading the program now for 7 years, and as Coach Brown said, to win the first ever state title in boys golf is really special. Something that they'll know for the rest of their lives that this was the first ever state title. It is an unbelievable group of young men, 12 guys who work extremely hard. People don't realize how difficult it is to play the sport of golf, and the effort and time that they put in is tremendous. It's interesting. Golf, 5 guys get to go out and play for each particular tournament or match, but it's not just the 5 guys, and that's something that has been very important to us. We're a family. We are a true team, and every single one of the 12 guys contributed to this state title. So very proud of them. I'd love to call them up and introduce you to all of the guys. We'll start with our lone freshman. We got Ben Walker. Then we'll go with our sophomores. We've got Andrew Clark, Lowen Chesley, Stephen Hickam, Michael Mays, and Jacob Siplin. And then our juniors, we've got Brandon Boncori, William Deswart. Move down some, Ben. Griffin Estes, Josh Siplin, and then our 2 senior leaders, we've got Cullen Dowden and Drew Lanier. Go down one.
She may pull you back in.
Every other one, step forward. 2 back.
Jacob, back up.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. And again. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Okay, the next, we would like to introduce our competition cheer team. They have, I believe, it is, Angie can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe they've won state championships 7 of the last 8 years. They've won it 9 years in the time that it's been recognized as an FHSA sport. And I think cheerleading has about 18 state championships total, something like that. So over the course of time, they've been very successful. But our coach is Angie Austin, so if I have her come up.
Thank you so much for having us today. We have been here before, but it is just as exciting today as it is any other year. So thank you for having us. My name is Angela Austin. I'm the head cheerleading coach at Winter Park. I'm also a Winter Park High School alumni with Rob. We graduated at the same time, and so it's an honor to be here with him and the golf team. Congratulations on your first state championship, and I know you guys will win many, many more. I would like to introduce our amazing cheer team. These young ladies work year-round. A lot of people don't realize they lift weights in the off-season. Strength and conditioning. They train very hard throughout this season, and they are a wonderful group of young ladies, and I'm very proud of them. So, girls, when I call your name, if you want to come on up. First, we have Addison Black, Haley Collins, Sophia Ostheim, Alondra Felix Ortiz, Riley Webb, Haley Champion, Brooke Lauren, who's not here today, Abby Trainum, Sarah Robinson, Amanda Westray, Emma Berry, Emma Scarelli, Madison Barra, who's not with us today, Kaylee Carmani, Brooke Merle, Lexi Behrman, Jaden Lopez. And last but not least, we have Sam Robinson, and he was our team manager with us this year. I just completed my 24th year as a cheerleading coach, and I'm just as proud this year as any other year. Congratulations, ladies, and thank you very much for having us today.
I don't know if Angie wants me saying this, but she was one of my former students when I taught chemistry back in the day. All right, our last group is our women's crew team. They're here representing our crew program. This year, they won their 38th state championship. I know that there's no other school that's even close to that. I think the crew team started in about 1962, somewhere around in there. So out of that time, they have won more than half of the number of years that they've been in existence. So I want to ask Coach Bertullo to come up and introduce our crew team.
I won't. I want to thank the mayor and the council for inviting us back. We have been here before with Angie and the team. I want to congratulate Rob and the golf team, our track star, and the cheerleaders for another title. This was our 8th in a row. I am not going to announce all the girls by name. Okay, there's about 40 here. Just to let you know, 36 competed at the state championship in the first varsity 8, the second varsity 8, the third varsity 8, the fourth varsity 8, and all 4 8s brought home the Scholastic Points Trophy, or the Scholastic Trophy for the event. So they all came home as Scholastic champions. We won the girls' overall points trophy, and then combined with the boys to win our 38th trophy. So that's how the crew season goes. We're still not done, though. In about a week and a half, 18 of these young ladies will board a plane to go up to Ohio to compete for a national championship. Past 2 years, we've gotten second. So maybe this could be the year that we bring home the gold. So I hope so. Ladies, I guess we'll just come up, gather. The way we usually do it, we just gather around up here and, get comfortable. So.
Thank you again. It's very nice of us. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, folks, thank you for waiting patiently as we honored our high school athletes. Before I move on to 4C, I wanted to recognize Tim Freed. Tim, are you still here with us?
Take pictures outside.
Is he?
His stuff is still here.
Okay, let's go through it. He's probably got a nice camera in there. So I'll save that for later. Anyway, it's board appointments time, folks, and I move my appointments.
I'll second.
Discussion? Okay, let's open up the floor to public comment. Anybody wishing to address the commission on item 4C, now is your time. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the floor. Cindy, would you please read the roll?
Mr. Mayor, I just had a
Yes,
quick
sir.
comment.
Sure.
And it's more of a question, and again, I apologize, didn't have a chance to go through everything. On the CRA Advisory Board, my question was just more of in the CRA area, do we have specific folks that have requirements to live within the CRA and that they're on the board?
There are requirements. I couldn't tell you who they are on the board, but they are requirements.
Okay, no, that was just my question. I just didn't have a chance to look
Yeah,
at that.
Cindy, staff vets those to make sure we're meeting the requirements when I appoint. Okay, Cindy, please read the roll.
Commissioner Seidel?
Yes.
Commissioner Sprinkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Leary?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Knight, your turn, sir.
Thank you. Just want to remind the commission that at the request from the last commission meeting, we set up 2 work sessions. The first one is June 10th at 2:30 to discuss septic tanks, more specifically in the area of Lee Road. And then the second item, June 24th, is a work session on electric.
Sorry, Randy, would you just go back? I'm just, June 10th at what time?
2:30.
And that's the Lee Road.
Actually, did I say 2 o'clock? At 2:30. At 2:30, and yeah, that's on septic tanks. And then June 24th, the conversation is about electric undergrounding and those areas that were annexed after the city acquired the electric system. Is it, June 24th. And just a reminder, we do not have a commission meeting in 2 weeks, as that's the Memorial Day weekend.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Did you all redo the picture day?
Yes, that has been set for June 10th
Okay.
also.
So that's between the 2:30 and the 3:30 meeting? So we're going to get a picture, maybe we aren't coming at 2, we come at 3. Just send me a note.
We'll get that information out to you. Thank you.
Yes, please. Is that all you have?
Yes, sir.
Questions for the city manager? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Ardeman.
Pass, Mayor, thank you.
Questions for the city attorney? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Randy, who's taking CAFR? Is it Wes?
Yes.
Wes, great job, by the way. That's a pretty heavy piece of literature, so thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Mayor. It's, this is our highlight of the year when we get to present to you our annual financial report.
If y'all have never seen CPAs excited, now's the time.
That's right. So, yes, hundreds of hours go into preparing this document. Lots of people. I want to acknowledge our staff here. Assistant Finance Director Karen Cockerham, Chief Accountants Franco Catalan and Sandra Porcello. Thank them for their hard work and sacrifice in putting this together. We put the document together. It's audited by Moore Stevens Lovelace. I'm going to give you just a few little highlights of the report, and then they have a presentation for you as well. So in our general fund, we had a nice increase there of about $4.4 million in our general fund balance. Big reasons for that are, one, sale of the bowling alley property on Fairbanks. That's the biggest single contribution. Another big year for construction activity. Our revenues were $1.4 million more than our budget estimates. So some of that is restricted to enforcing the Florida Building Code, and some is not restricted. Half-cent sales tax was a good year. It was $383,000 more than with budget estimate. And departments did a very good job of staying overall as a whole and within their budgetary constraints, and that contributed another $500,000 or so. So we landed at about $13.5 million general fund reserve balance. And that's 25.81% of total expenditures and transfers out for recurring operational cost reporting in other funds. That's things like debt service activities, or in the transfer of tax increment revenue to the CRA, which happens every year. We do have a special revenue fund that's got a large deficit. That's our Hurricane Recovery Fund. And we, from Hurricane Irma, which hit us in September 2017, and we're continuing to work with FEMA and the state on getting reimbursements for that. Our Water and Sewer Fund had a very strong year. It has debt service coverage of 1.92. That means our net revenues to the system were 1.92 times the debt service requirements. Our minimum requirement there is 1.25, so it's very good. In our electric fund, we had a good year from a revenue expense standpoint. Our coverage there was 2.71 times. That's near our historical average there. That's not quite as good as it sounds because transfers don't count towards debt service coverage. So after that, you still have to do the transfer to the general fund of the franchise fee equivalent. I pointed out in our title sheet that our cash balance did decline. We were near a break even at the end of fiscal 17. We declined in 18 for a couple reasons. One was we reduced our fuel rates to reduce our fuel cost stabilization fund balance to get down within our acceptable range. That's about a $700,000 reduction there. And the other big reason is we paid bills in fiscal 18 at the beginning of the fiscal year that related to Hurricane Irma recovery costs, payments to our contractors, payments to mutual aid, other electric utilities, mostly in Georgia. I think we had one in Alabama that came and helped us out in getting the power back on. So that's kind of the highlights, and like we have with us from Moore Stevens Lovelace, Joel Knopp, who's a shareholder, and Eddie Castaneda, who's was our audit manager, and they have a presentation for you as well.
Great, thank you.
Also, this is, as you can tell, is a very big report. If anyone has any questions after tonight, we would be more than happy to meet with you to go over that.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. It is a pleasure to be here and present some of the highlights of the comprehensive annual financial report. I think I can shorten
Joel,
our...
would you just introduce yourself?
Oh, sure, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Joel Knopp with MSL. I'm a shareholder and serve along with Dan O'Keefe. He sends his regrets as he's out of the country, but glad to fill in and cover the highlights. I think I can keep it extra brief just because Wes has already covered a lot of the financial details, but I do have some required auditor communications under our professional standards, so I'll go through those fairly quickly here. First off, the services that we provided to the city were to audit the city's financial statements for the year ended September 30, 2018. And our overall responsibility was to issue an opinion as to whether the financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles for governments. And you'll find that report on page 19 of the document. It was a clean opinion or unmodified opinion. We did emphasize the matters relates to an implementation of a new accounting standard related to other post-employment benefits, but a clean opinion for the city. In the back of the document, you'll find other reports required under the standards we report under, which include government audit standards as well as uniform guidance related to federal grants, as well as the rules of the Auditor General. So just briefly there, the first report is under government audit standards, and it relates to internal controls over financial reporting and compliance. And pleased to report there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses identified in our audit. So a clean opinion there. The following report on page 157 is the report related to the single audit and the federal grants. And there was one federal program that was required to be audited under these standards, and that was also a clean report. There were no compliance issues or internal control matters noted. Following that, you'll find the Auditor General required management letter on page 163, and as well as the independent accountant's report on page 165, which relates to the city's investment compliance. And those were both clean letters as well, in that there were no findings identified as a result of those procedures. Just briefly, management's responsibilities as relate to the audit are to establish and maintain internal controls and to make all information available to us to complete our audit. I'm pleased to report that we got full cooperation from Wes and his staff and throughout the city departments. As well as management's responsible for making adjustments to the financial statements if there are misstatements identified. I'm pleased to report there were no audit adjustments that were identified that were material to the financial statements. And management's also responsible for communicating any fraud or suspected fraud to us as we complete our procedures. Again, no issues noted there. The auditor's responsibilities, as I mentioned, the various standards we report under, government audit standards, uniform guidance and rules of the Auditor General. We can't test every transaction, so we're providing reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance, that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. As part of our procedures, I mentioned the reports on internal controls. So we do consider the internal controls over financial reporting as part of our audit and as a way of planning and identifying where there could be potential risk of misstatement. We don't express an opinion on internal controls, but we do test controls, and we would have identified any deficiencies if we had come across them. We also test the city's compliance. I mentioned the federal grants, but we also look at state Florida statute as well as other local policies, and again, no issues identified under the compliance testing. And there's no unreported or unadjusted differences, so the financial or the trial balance that we received from the finance department was in good shape. We didn't require any audit adjustments to correct it. We had no disagreements with management, and as far as we know, management did not receive opinions from other accountants. Lastly, as we concluded the audit, we obtained management representations, and that relates in large part to management taking responsibility for the financial statements, and we received that letter at the conclusion of our audit. Our audit schedule followed the expected timeline. The CAFR was, or Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, was submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association. It has in the past, and I expect that award to be received again. And that leaves us with the financial analysis, which I won't get into in much detail since Wes covered the highlights. It was a good year, as he indicated, as it relates to the general fund. You have a very healthy general fund, unassigned fund balance. You were in compliance with your budget. And the enterprise funds in particular are operating at a profit, and so everything looked good from our standpoint as it relates to fiscal year 18. So I will leave it at that as opposed to covering more detail on the financial numbers unless there's anything specific that you all had questions on. But again, we really appreciate the opportunity to serve the city as it relates to the audit.
Thank you. Commissioner Swing?
I was just going to say that this was the easiest one for me to read so far. That's because I've read so many in the past, or because we really are doing well. And that came through loud and clear. There was no issues. There was nothing that you had to go back and fix. And I hear so much about transparency and so much about can you trust this? And this was sterling. And I felt like we really did a great job. And thank you for telling us that.
Sure.
Great. Nothing else? Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Wes, team, great job. As always, you guys keep us on track, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wes, are you sticking around for the next item?
I am.
Excellent. Can you do it standing up, Wes? You're usually sitting over in that right-hand seat.
Oh.
This may throw you off.
I'll do it standing up, if that's okay.
You got 3 for today. You give us the invocation, and you got a couple of...
I know. Well, and a little item under public hearings, too. It's a pretty small item, though. So we've got we got a 6-month report for you for our fiscal 19 that we're in right now. So I'm going to start with our general fund, hitting the highlights in our schedule here. So bottom line here looks really strong, and that's because we received most of our property tax revenues during the first 6 months of the fiscal year, and then we live off those revenues for the remainder of the year. And that's property tax about 1/3 of our general fund revenues, maybe even a little more than that. Most of our revenues are looking in pretty good shape. Communication services tax is not as good as some of the others because that's been a kind of a declining source of revenue. The building permits, though, are continuing to look very strong. We got some large projects and lots of residential work done as well. So the permit revs continue to look very good. Departments all seem to be staying within their budgetary constraints well. Operating transfers out, I'll point out that looks well ahead of its budget, and that is because we're required to transfer tax increment revenue to the CRA by December 31. So that transfer has already been made, and that's why that looks to be over budget at this point, but that will come out even with the budget as we progress through the year. CRA, it had a nice, that transfer from the city and from the county due to increase in valuation. That, let's see, our tax incremental valuation went up 14%. Debt service appears to be over budget, but that's largely because principal is due January 1, and so those payments have been made. Water and sewer fund, looking very good. It's got a positive $926,000 for 6 months into the year. Projected debt service coverage of well over 2 times, so that's strong. Our electric services fund is moving along pretty well. We're close to on track with our forecast for sales in terms of kilowatt hours. Our spending on undergrounding is pretty close to the budget. We've reduced our fuel rates again this past January 1. We've got a fuel stabilization balance of $1,147,000 at March 31. Our target's to be right around $1,350,000 at December 31. That will bounce around a good bit in the interim months between here and there, but we hope to end at about $1,350,000, which will be about break even with where we were at the end of last year. For fiscal 18, we drew that balance down a good bit, $700,000. And for this year, we're expecting to be about break even because the balance is about where we want it to be. Overall, we had a negative to fiscal to date of about $412,000 for that first 6 months. One is under recovery of fuel costs is the main single reason, and we've incurred some other costs that won't be repeated through the remainder of the year. Debt service coverage was projecting to be close to 3 times, so it's very good. And you also have an investment report there that shows the portfolio of the city at March 31. It's got a blended rate of return of 1.88%, so we're seeing the benefit of higher interest rates on this end. And from the investment standpoint, local government investment pools have been a good source of income there. And as rates were on the rise, they're not so much right now, but they were, and so we were shortening the duration of our portfolio as investment securities came due. So our average duration right now is just a little over 3 years. Everything's within compliance with our investment policy, and that's the highlights of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Hamel. Questions for Wes? Nope. Nope, sorry.
Hey, I read somewhere that we had one of our, and I'm not sure if it was in this report or in the CAPA report, I'm sorry, that one of our electric undergroundings had been put on hold because of something else that was going on. What do we do when one's been put on hold? Do we just go to the next one on the list? And are we, my whole deal was to make sure we were still on target to get our 5 miles underground at least. And I know we finished higher than that, but just tell me what we do when that happens.
Yes, we'd go to the next one on the list. If there's a reason that one's on hold that keeps it from being forwarded, we'd just move to the next one on the list.
Am I dreaming this, or did I just read that one went on hold?
Oh, we have the electric utilities director here, all caffeinated.
So yes, ma'am, you're right. Project G, which is right here where you've seen on Canton, the west side of the railroad tracks, we're still waiting on a permit from DOT to get under the railroad track. So we've moved on and we're working in Project H and also in another project that abuts that. So trying to make good decisions so when we come back, we're congruent with the area around it.
I just remember thinking we didn't want to wait on the state on anything.
We're not
Yeah,
waiting, we
okay.
move on.
Hey, Danny, while I've got you there and a little bit off topic, but while you're sitting there, Fairbanks, how's that going?
That's going well. As you see, Harper's open now.
It is.
To traffic. In a couple of weeks, we'll be closing down the corner of Comstock and Harper for some work, but the front entrance to Walgreens and all will be done. And they're starting to work now at night, moving toward I-4, moving westward toward I-4, and we're on target.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Hamel? No, Wes, thank you. Again, team, thank you very much. Mr. Knight, nice job. Okay, folks, we'll take citizen comments closer to 5 o'clock. Consent agenda? What's
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Discussion, commission. Nope. We'll open up the floor to public comment. Anybody wishing to address the commission on item 9, now is your time. Okay, we'll close the floor to public comment. Cindy, please read all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Cindy, count that as a 4-0. Thank you. Item 10A. Hi, Troy.
Good afternoon. So before you have a update to the original memorandum of understanding with the DOT for the 1792 improvements. The original one was from 2004 when the project was first initiated. As the team has gotten more into design, they wanted to clarify some of the expectations moving forward. And so this MOU clarifies those related to doing survey and engineering to add, potentially add dual lefts at Fairbanks and also at 1792. So the DOT is taking that upon themselves with their own nickel to do that. And then also looking at landscaping, street lighting, going to mast arms for traffic signals, and then I think also preemption for emergency vehicles. And so this basically gives the design team the framework to move forward, and then as costs are developed for these that would be on the city's nickel, they'll come back and we'll be able to address those specific costs in further agreements. So this is just kind of setting the framework for moving forward.
Troy, what does that timing look like? I mean, do we need to call a CRA meeting?
They are at least 3 months out from any information, and I don't know the specifics on that, but I would say probably more in the 6-month time frame we'll be getting some more detailed costs.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Troy? No? Commissioner Sprinkle?
Isn't this what you told us we were going to have coming in front of us a couple of weeks ago when we met?
Yes.
This is what you told
Yes.
us you were working on.
Yes.
Well, congratulations on getting it, and thank you for getting it here. And also one more thank you for all of those buoys. They look great. You all did a great job of getting them out. Thanks.
Thank you.
Never a missed opportunity on the buoys. Commissioner Seidel?
The buoys do look a lot better than I thought, just so I thought they would. Troy, I was interested because the agreement didn't get too much into the traffic modeling. It talked about some improvements. Have we had conversations about the type of modeling that they're doing for the corridor and whether or not that can be expanded?
We have had conversations along those lines. You know, our desire is to look for any improvements that could be made at intersections along here. The two areas that are identified in here are where, you know, we have discussed potential intersection improvements.
Yeah, I guess, are they just analyzing intersections, or are they doing a corridor-wide traffic model on it?
My understanding is they are analyzing intersections where there's a potential for improvement. They're not doing, as I understand, they're not doing an entire corridor model.
Okay, thanks.
Any questions for Troy? Troy, would you I have heard some folks, and since you're up there, I was just gonna ask for a comment on the Webster. You and I chatted about it the other day, the Webster-Denning turn buses, because there's still some congestion there. Those buses are kind of clogging up.
Yes.
So before you leave, if you would just address that.
Okay.
Sorry, no, you can, go ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
So we are working with Lynx to get them on board because with the Denning project, it's kind of been an incremental thing. And so the stop that is southbound on Denning, just south of Webster, is no longer a stop, even though the canopy is still there. We're working with Lynx to get that canopy relocated because the stop is actually now on Webster, just before you would get, if you're heading westbound or eastbound, just before you get to Denning. So we're working with them to relocate the canopy and everything to that new stop location, but we're trying to educate the Lynx drivers to not stop there, as well as the patrons to not use that. So there's signage there that says this is not a stop, you know, and telling them where the new stop is. So,
Folks, say.
I'd like to move it.
Okay.
I'll second.
Great. Thank you, Troy. We'll open up the floor to public comment. Anybody wishing to address the commission on item 10A, now is your time. Okay, seeing none, we'll close it for the discussion, folks. Okay, Cindy, please read the roll on 10A.
Commissioner Seidel?
Yes.
Commissioner Sprinkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Leary?
Yes, thank you. 10B. Phil, what's this on?
Yes.
Oh, no, not public comment on.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're gonna have the
We'll wait right
presentation
here.
first, and who's,
I'm going to kick it off, Mr. Mayor, and then
Okay.
I'm going to have Russell Crater come up from Ajay and Associates. We're at a major milestone on the Canopy project. Tonight, we're asking the commission for approval to move forward with construction drawings and move forward with DDs on the rooftop venue. With construction drawings, the schedule calls for those to be complete by October, third week of October of this year, at which time Brassfield and Gorey will take those drawings and go out to hard bid. And so that's the point that, you know, once they've gotten the hard bid from the contractors, they will be able to give the city the guaranteed maximum price. That's when they guarantee the price to the city, that you will then have the opportunity to vote on that moving forward with the entire project. So we expect to have that come to you before the January 13th, 2020 City Commission meeting. And if that's approved at that point, you'd move forward with the actual construction of the project. So I'm going to bring Russell Crater up from Ajay and Associates to give an overview of the project, and then I will talk to you about where we are financially with the project.
Great, thank you. Russell, welcome back to town.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, residents of City of Winter Park. I'd like to share with you a few of the images of the library and event center that you've been seeing, and speak to kind of where we are and how we've evolved to where we are. I'm starting with this image. I believe many of you have seen. This is an aerial from Harper and Morris Boulevards. This is showing the what we call the campus. And if you recall, as we came down and listened as part of the Aspen Institute's kind of forum for what the library could be, and the event center, that's when we started to rethink this, not just as a library and event center, but more as a cohesive campus, and more importantly, using the park then as a all-inclusive sort of center for lifelong learning, working with mind, body, and soul. So you can see the library is holding, is holding the axis there off of Harper. This is Morris Boulevard, Port Cochere, and then the event center with the rooftop venue. And as you can see, it's kind of a pairing, a family stepping from the library down to the event center, down to the Port Cochere, all kind of framing and working off of each other to make views through and around the lake. Simply a view from Morris Boulevard. You can see, apologies. You can see here, this is sort of an evening dusk shot. I just wanted to highlight the differences in what's occurring on the inside of the building, the library being a two-story space, the event center being primarily a single-story large volume space. and the port cochere, and then framing then from Morris, that view then through the lake and into the park. Here's the view then as we've entered into the campus, and that's the library on the right-hand side you're seeing, the event center on the left, and a sort of a grassy knoll here on top of the Belvedere with the palm trees in the background. And so those palm trees that I just spoke to just now, we're looking just off to the east of the event center. There's the library. We've got the outdoor amphitheater that's leading down to the lake edge. So you have this moment of respite or a viewing over the lake. We've got an area here that can seat or function at 200 people on the Belvedere for an outdoor activity. And then we also have the outdoor amphitheater that steps down to which people across the lake could actually have a viewing or listen to a performance. A view from across the lake looking back at the event center and the library and that outdoor amphitheater that I was just mentioning. This is a plan of the event center. I just want to walk through this briefly. We've got the entrance. We would have had the port cochere here. The library is off to the left of the image. You basically would enter into the front here. I'll show you an image here in just a second. On the pre-function space, the zone to kind of gather yourself as you first make your arrival, moving your way basically all the way to the rear for the 300-person banquet hall. The lake is down to the bottom of the page. You can see we have an event center, a junior ballroom in the event center that's kind of pairing to the library. There is that visual connection that one and the other can make that visual connection to each other, as well as in like staff services, the kitchen and catering off to the right, and a set of restrooms and service down the corridor, and then the office manager and administration suite. So here's that view as you've just came into the event center. You can see it's about an 18-foot volume, equally sized. You can see we're doing a stepping inside to bring down that scale, but to still keep the volume for a major function such as this. A junior ballroom, basically set up with all the tech and AV at a smaller scale. Same amount of abilities as the main ballroom, but just at a smaller scale. And then the main ballroom. And you can see what we're pointing out here is we've got two major projection sites looking back north. The lake is to our left. Here we've just put in, sort of a seminar on robotics. But you can see that there could be a multitude of uses here and how it could be used. This would be the rooftop venue on top of the event center. This one is looking east, looking actually back towards Park Avenue. And then kind of looking back and reflecting, seeing the possibility for seating up top, as well as an indoor space that can be used as well. This is just a little detail, kind of looking at the facade of the library and event center. It's what we're using throughout the campus, and that as the ground floor plane that you're walking on turns up into the building, that's a site cast concrete, and then it's on that this new precast, this new wall that starts to have sort of a feeling to it that's, it has a texture and starts to relate more to the human scale. We're referring to these moments, these divots, as a scalloping, and you can start to see how it's capturing the light a little bit differently with each scallop. And that has to do with the way that the form of the building is splaying out. And doing so in that splaying, that's where we're getting some solar protection and some rain protection from above. And you can see how it creates the shadows as the sun moves around, and then highlights it in others. Here we are with a view from Harper Street looking at the library at the facade. This is basically the existing parking lot that is there now. Void in this rendering, you're not seeing the trees, but the intent is to keep all of that parking lot and tree pits intact. And then this is the entry. And so here's the campus. The event center would be at the top of the page. Harper Street would be at the bottom. The way we've organized the library in going back to the Aspen Institute and what we heard and what we've worked with the library is again, that notion of the Center for Lifelong Learning. And that's where I just brought out the cue in Event Center, how there's there's a visual relationship to what's going on in the Event Center back and forth between the library that occurs on both floors. But within the library, on the center axis, we have what we're calling kind of a grand hall. This is a flexible space. The furniture and bookshelves could potentially be moved out of the way, and this becomes a functioning space for a larger audience or standing event. But off of this axis, then, that we've created sort of 4 zones, and those are the more cellular zones. So in essence, the library and the structure and the infrastructure and how we're thinking about this is to be able to support an open plan and still provide those moments of quiet, of moments of respite within the library. So again, campus is up here. This is the history and archive of the library. This is book handling, material services, staff workshop, and elevator to the 2nd floor. The central stair will take you up to the 2nd floor. We have the a reverse stoop lecture hall that takes you. This is representing about 120 chairs at the moment. The makerspace and collaboration. This is sort of the technology wing, and then the bookstore. This is Morris Boulevard, so to reorientate you. And then basically we have a business center with periodicals, nonfiction, fiction, reference. DVDs, multimedia down towards here. So we've been thinking, working with the library and been thinking quite heavily about how one interacts with the books, what's circulated first, how you make those interactions with the books so that you start to be more inspired by the books that they actually have in their collection. So that's been part of the research here. And then this is the 2nd floor. We've just come up the central stair. We have reestablished that grand hall that we had downstairs. We have a central access. Then flanking what was the lecture hall downstairs, this is now a meeting room and the story room. This is predominantly for kids and story time. This is a 100-person meeting room. What you're seeing stacked in that corner is a movable partition, so this whole room could be accessed at one time. And then over here on the other side then is a teen screening room. And I'll show you an image in a second. But then the administrative suite and their private offices and the open offices, the washer and dryer, pantries, and then joint conference rooms you're seeing here and here. One thing I didn't mention below is that in all of these, we have basically collaboration or small 2-person study rooms. So private study carrels in the midst of all the open planning gives that quiet time, that tutoring sessions that can occur in private, as well as 2 collaboration rooms here and here. And then basically the toddler picture books, and I'll show you an image of that in just one second. So this is a view as you're entering into the library off of Harper Street. That grand hall I was just speaking about, these are the service desks with some self-checkout, a display. Basically, this is going all the way through to, right now we're on the campus side looking back towards Harper. So that image, sorry about the darkness in this image right now, but this is the history archive on display. It's in a tempered room where the atmospheric conditions of that room are very much controlled, but what's interesting is that you as the public can see what is on collection. Equally so, we have the book handling going on here. This is where you would return a book and the elevator's up. That hint of yellow is started in the computer lab and makerspace, and then the study carrel is back there. This is as we've just walked in, you can see the double height space. And so this would be the 2nd floor above. And we've basically set up a series of open shelving out on the floor, a reading bench all along the perimeter, and then these niches. Inside these niches hold the books at a varying heights. We're working with what you actually need for your counts. And then inside that niche, also working to have a place to display art. So we'll have art and books sort of dancing around the facade, down around the facade, and on the inside of this core, all the way around the library, as well as the idea of being able to use the top of the bookshelves, and then just going back here. being able to take advantage of the front of the concierge desk, as well as using the grand hall for display. This is a view from that archive, the history room. We're basically talking about the ability now to start exhibits that are highlighting some of the aspects of what you have for history and representing that to the public to see. This is the lecture hall. This is the computer lab. You can see that we have a view through to Morris Boulevard. On the other side of that, this small knee wall will be the cafe bookstore. And then through that blue there, that will be through to the business center. Here we are on the second floor, children's floor. Again, same notion where we'll be using a niche for all the books and then creating an alcove then for a lot of the art to be displayed, two-dimensional art. And then three-dimensional art will be along the bookshelves and displays. The toddler picture books. You can see this green room right here. That will be the storytelling room here. So that storytelling room has this wall in the back right here that opens up to the right, and doing so enters into the meeting room. So these two rooms can conjoin. And now we're looking from the meeting room past the center of the library and into the screening room for the teens. And so this is basically sort of a gaming TV screening room for collaboration of teens. The administration suite. This is an example of the study carrels I was explaining that occurs on both the first and second floors, where those are two-person rooms where you can go for homework help or private study. Another view from the children's floor. This is basically the teen section, where we have sort of what you're seeing as footstools as part of the lounge furniture. That's all to be determined, but just bringing down that scale and changing what the teens and tweens would use. And then the overall again. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Russell. Questions for Russell? Randy, did you have something to add before we do? Do you want to tighten anything up before?
No, just talk about the financials when you're done asking questions about what you've seen here.
Yeah, let's talk about design first, and then we'll come back. Mr. Seidel?
Russell, I had a question. I thought we had eliminated the stairs coming in off of Harper Street, and when you showed the exhibits, they were still showing stairs. Those just the older exhibits?
They are just shown for exhibits. You are correct. What we're hoping to do in preservation of the existing parking lot, let me just come back to this. I'm sorry, I should just use this aerial. Boom. Yes, you're correct. In preservation of that existing parking lot, what we're trying to do is actually eliminate these stairs by using the existing grade and manipulating this edge such that we have what I call a 0-degree entry. So the whole site entry points would be university accessible.
Okay, Ms. Sprinkle?
Can I move it?
Let's wait to hear from Mr. Knight on the financials and where we stand. Any other questions for Mr. Prater? No, Russell, thank you. We may have you back up, so don't go anywhere too fast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Knight?
Yes, as you recall, back in February, we got to the point where the base project was in budget, and we had this list of ad alternates that totaled another roughly $9 million for the ad alternates. And at the time, we were waiting to have our presentation on the TDT and waiting to hear from the county on our tourist development tax. And so we put the project on hold at that time to get to this stage today. So now, as we sit here today, the tourist development tax was approved by the county. And so the total fundraising effort to date is at $8.2 million. So let me just quickly run through the numbers. They're in your packet as well. But the base project is
Randy, I'm sorry. Can we, Russ, can we get that up on the screen? That page? It's page 2 in our backup on this item. Sorry, Randy, I think it may help people follow along. Scroll down on that page. There, nope, next, you're on the wrong item. Go down to 11, there you go. Scroll down, click on that, back up. Give it a second, it'll pop. Next page. Oop, that page. If you could enlarge that a bit. There you go. That's fine, just like that, Russ. Thank you. Okay, Randy, go ahead.
Thank you. So at the top of the page there, you see we have the proceeds from the bonds at 27.9, the interest earnings on the bond proceeds at 800,000, fundraising at 8.2 million. That includes the 6 million from the tourist development tax, for a total of 36.9 million available today. The project, if you'll scroll down just a little bit, Russ, base project at 23.8, construction dollars, 7.5 in soft cost, and then the 4 original ad alternates are those next 4 items: the portico share, the rooftop venue, the exterior amphitheater, and the raked auditorium and the library. And then the additional enhancements are listed below. All of the project costs combined add up to 40.5 million, as you see at the bottom, leaving us with about 3.6 million left to be raised for this project. So that puts us at the total, and the ask today is for the commission to approve moving forward to construction drawings with the overall project, moving forward to design development with the rooftop. There's one error I wanted to point out in the title sheet, in the paragraph where we talk about contingency. It says that the 40.5 million includes 938,000 in estimating contingency and 1.9 million in owner's contingencies. The 1.9 actually includes that 938, so the total contingency is right at $2 million. Just wanted to point that out because it's incorrect on the title sheet. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions, and we do have the rest of the design, many of the design team here. We have Mauricio Mazzo from Hunt and Brady, Jim Russell from Pizzuti, Michelle Whiteside with Brassfield and Gorey, and some of the other design team, and I'll also see Tom Yoakum here who's helping us with our fundraising, so you can ask him all the hard questions.
Great, Commissioner.
So now I'd like to move the 10B, which is the canopy project update and approval to move to construction drawings.
And does that include the D&D for the rooftop?
Yes, it does. It includes everything we see right here, even including the remaining amount to be raised.
So, as Randy stated.
It is as it is, and as we have gone over and had many workshops on.
Okay, so Randy, I'll second that because I believe what Commissioner Sprinkle is moving is basically as you phrased it. Would you rephrase that just for the record? Because I think this is what you're asking for, Commissioner.
Yes, sir. I'm asking the commission to approve authorizing the design team to move to construction drawings, and as the schedule pointed out, that's due to be done by the 3rd week in October, to move the rooftop to the DD level, which would come back for approval, but then it would also catch up and move towards construction drawings at the same time once that's approved. And to have the fundraising team continue to raise the additional $3.6 million between now and the time you have to make the decision on the guaranteed maximum price.
Okay, Commissioner, is that your?
Yes, sir.
Good, and that's my second as well. Commissioner, you still have the floor if you'd like, or?
I'm ready to go.
Okay, Commissioner Seidel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Randy, just, and I'm sorry I didn't ask you this beforehand, but what's the cost to the city to move ahead to that date to pay to get the plans to that 80%? Do we have any kind of number on that? And if we don't, it'd be nice if the staff that was here could think about that so we would know what that number is.
Yeah, I don't know that off the top of my head.
Yeah, I just thought of it while I was sitting here, so it's, but yeah, if the folks out there have some idea, that'd be very helpful to the rest of us.
Wait, tell me, what are you asking again? What's it going to cost the city for what?
Between now and October, basically.
To get this work done, are we talking about $200,000, $500,000, or $1 million? And just to have some concept number, not a,
We're not
Exactly.
specifying that, though. We're moving the whole project. We don't want to get into specifying moving just
no, this
part of it.
isn't part of the project. I'm just asking
Oh,
what,
okay.
this is to find out what the risk.
So
would
let's,
be.
so is there someone in the, from staff or from the team that can give us a parameter on that? Is that a $200,000 ask, is that a $5 million ask?
That's what we're trying to determine.
Okay,
How much that Mauricio and Russell are going to charge.
yeah, I thought it was too. Yeah, that number exists somewhere. So why don't we move forward while you guys get us somewhere in that ballpark, please? Mr. Seidel, anything else, sir?
No, that's all the questions I had. right now,
Okay,
Mr. Mayor. Thank
Mr.
you.
Weaver?
Yeah, I have a presentation of my own
On what, sir?
on this subject.
Okay, so let's,
It's
since
a
we,
discussion.
so let's keep it within the parameters of this item, please, sir.
We will.
Mr. Weaver, how much time do you need?
I don't know.
You've created a presentation, I mean, are we talking 5 minutes or a half an hour?
Somewhere in that range, yeah.
Okay, let's try to keep it on the south side of that range, if you wouldn't mind, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to first start by thanking staff, the commission, the library task force, and the library staff and design team for all their hard work getting to this point. And just so you know, in case anybody told you different, I voted for the library bond. So I'm new to this job, and I have to rely on city staff and the city attorney and others to advise me on some things like procedures and when to raise my hand and so forth. But my background, I'm a structural engineer, I'm a general contractor. I've served as an owner's rep on multiple buildings. I've designed and built 2 clean room factories, a hotel, theme park stuff.
So, Mr. Weaver, as a commissioner, I think that's what you're here representing today, yes?
I'll make it brief, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I'd like to just stay focused on this, sir, if you will.
I will. So over the last 15 years, I did 3 projects for Panasonic Avionics, expanding their manufacturing facilities to 40,000 square feet. So one of the things I've learned is the financial success of any project is really critical at the estimating stage. And in November of 2017, as a structural engineer and an insomniac, I look at things and figure out how I can build that. So I immediately became concerned when I saw this concept because I know what things cost per square foot. So the bond measure, basically, we voted for buildings that totaled about 58,000 square feet. And I did a little math, knowing what exotic buildings cost, like we did at Universal Studios and other places. And I was thinking, now how on earth are we going to build these for $30 million? And so I researched a bunch of AGE projects. They have done some beautiful work around the world, and I'm going to show you a few of them. Russ, next slide, please. So this is a beautiful building in Moscow, and you can see that it was finished at $782 a square foot. Next. This is a building in London at $694. Next.
Mr. Weaver, again, I'm asking
Mr.
you.
Mayor?
Sir,
Excuse me.
Sir, no, excuse me.
The Denver Museum of Contemporary Art, $1,166 a square foot.
We will ask you to sit if you don't.
Mr. Mayor, I'm a duly elected Winter Park City
That's right,
Commissioner,
sir, and I am
and
the
we're
chair
having a
of this.
discussion.
And I am the chair, and I am asking you again to please stay focused on the issue at hand, not past projects.
We are talking about cost and moving this project forward, and that's exactly what I'm doing,
And
Mr.
sir,
Mayor.
you need to focus on this
I
project.
will not
past
interrupt you when
projects.
it's your turn.
It is always my turn, sir, as the chair, to remind folks
Can
when
we
they're
move
straying
on,
off
please?
topic. If you stay on topic, we will. If
I am
not,
on topic.
we will move on.
Russ, next, please. So this building right here, you can see the shape of it is similar to the Canopy project. However, the canted walls are not structural on the canopy project. Or excuse me, they are structural. These are secondary. So you have a vertical wall building with a flat roof and these little skins on the outside. They're made out of aluminum, but still the cost is $714 a square foot. So of all the budget items that I got, the best thing I could use for this discussion was the porte cochere, and that number hasn't changed throughout the last 14 months at $1.5 million. So the square footage has changed. Originally I was told it was 3,500 square feet. Next slide, please. So this is from the engineering drawings. I interviewed several of the design team and engineers last week, and the porte cochere now at the base level is 2,070 square feet. So if you do the math, that's $741 a square foot for basically a carport. Next slide, please. So this building has no perimeter footings, no walls, no windows, no plumbing, no roof loads, no parapet, no HVAC, no restrooms, minimal lighting, no interior walls. It has an oculus on the top and minimal interior finishes. So if you use that same number per square foot, which is how I bid buildings, next slide, please. The total of the library and event center as designed, 50,495 square feet. And this is, again, directly from the DD drawings. Next slide, please. So if you multiply that just for the shells, that comes out to 37 million and change. Next slide, please. So now you have that, and you add substantial wall heights, insulated windows, perimeter footings, interior structural steel, interior walls, spiral staircases, conventional staircases, elevators, insulation, interior finishes, lighting, HVAC, flooring, restrooms, parapets, raked auditorium, rooftop venue, interior doors, stormwater management, exterior entries and doors, electrical wiring and outlets, and so on. And again, I don't see how you can build this for what we're saying is $40 million. Next slide, please. So there's some design issues, and I talked to the design team about this week. A couple of them are, I consider, safety concerns. The raked auditorium, for instance, has an 18-inch drop, I believe. Is that correct? Between steps, and no handrails. So we have a lot of elderly and children, and personally I would not take that liability as a design. So the other thing is the second floor children's area. We have very low bookcases like this with a sheer drop of, what is that, 12 to 16 feet? Little boys climb things. I'm very concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the event center, the rooftop venue, and the outdoor amphitheater being on the south side of this building. This is Florida, folks. It's hot. And how many months a year are we really going to be able to use this? So my job, the most important job I have as your commissioner is fiduciary responsibility. And I'm asking the commission to delay this vote for two reasons. The full commission is not here tonight, and we need to see a reconciled budget that's readable. The staff employee that gave me this week said it's fluid. Well, I believe the specification has been very fluid, and is this design a good value for our money? That's what I want to ask you. We were promised a 50,000 square foot library, an 8,500 square foot event center, and a parking structure. And as a structural engineer, I know a lot of structural engineers. I've never been asked to design a parking lot. A parking lot is not a structure, I'm sorry. So this is possibly the largest capital improvement budget item we've ever done as a city. And I personally don't feel that this is the right way to go. So I'm asking for a delay till the commission can
Commissioner, are
be
you making
here
a
and we
motion?
get a full budget.
Are you making
Thank
a
you.
motion?
No, sir.
Okay, well, you can
Thank
make
you,
a motion
Bill.
to table if you'd like to make a motion to table. No motion to table? There is, and you can motion to table proceed, so if you'd like to make a motion to table, you certainly can. Okay, seeing no one, move on. Anybody else? Okay, let's open up the floor to public comment. Mr. Anderson, thanks for waiting so patiently.
Thank you very much. My name is Phil Anderson. I'm a Winter Park resident. I'm also a civil construction engineer, and I have been involved in ownership, development, and acquisition of close to $10 billion worth of real estate over my career. And moving from design development to construction documents is a very important thing. And there's always a few things that have to be done before you make that transition and that commitment. And so I'm going to read my question because I want it to be very, very, very precise. And I'll give a copy of it here, but I'll read it to you. And this is really addressed to the commissioners, the city manager, the city attorney, and if they were here, the bond counsel. And my question is this, and there's really 5 parts to it. Do each of the commissioners, the city attorney, bond counsel, and the city manager guarantee that proper and public notice has been given to residents, bondholders, and each commissioner regarding the following? 1, the material change in scope, eliminating approximately 14,000 square feet, approximately 28% from the library, leaving 36,000 square feet for the library instead of 50,000 square feet. Number 2, the change in use and compatibility evaluation of a changed operation emphasizing international convention tourism adjacent to the expanded children's library program. Number 3, the reduction in green space of Martin Luther King Park by approximately 2 acres. Number 4, the material changes in the total construction budget and operating expenses, and that the city manager has properly budgeted and reserved sufficient contingency, previously a 15% contingency, and has a sufficient funding plan for the project in place. And lastly, number 5, that qualified licensed civil and structural engineers have approved the drawings and specifications and have certified that the design as budgeted and as shown fully meets the existing and proposed soil conditions, stormwater, parking requirements, and that the city manager and staff have opined as to the sufficiency of those certifications. I suggest postponing further action until the city attorney and the city manager have confirmed the notice requirements of and the content of these requirements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Anyone else?
There's copies for everybody.
Brad Doster, 1581 Magnolia, Winter Park, Florida. I'm the president of the Board of Trustees for the library, so I wanted to come here today. I know we sent y'all some letters. I'm not an engineer. I'm not any of that stuff. But what I do know is that I've had at great lengths to talk to some of the professionals that have traveled here from far, that have come here to work on this project. We're grateful to have you guys. Thanks for the work you've put in. I know as a library board, we're appreciative that you've heard our concerns, not only met those, but exceeded that. This project is everything that we could have asked for as a library board. And more than that, why I got involved on this is because I have a 4-year-old daughter, a son who's going to turn 2 in June. We use the library. So it's easy to talk about things and have an opinion on stuff, but if you're not a user, it just makes the case a little tougher. We're users. We go every single week to the library. So I know the challenges that place has. It's not a great place to take our kids in the current building. My kids love reading. They love hanging out in the little play area. We can do better as a city. This project not only does better, but it goes way beyond that. Also, I've heard a lot of discussion and noise about, this doesn't meet the library's expectations, and it's supposed to be 50,000 square feet, and now we're getting, 36, 37. This exceeds the library's expectations. Each member of the library staff has been afforded the opportunity to contribute. The city has been very open about listening to our concerns, and they've made recommended changes that we've proposed. As people that are bringing in the programming, educating the community, having a safe place to come, you've listened to our concerns, you've met those concerns and exceeded that. We cannot be any happier with this project as the people who manage and serve as fiduciaries of the library. So thank you all for that. In closing, I would just like to say that, we wish this project got started yesterday, but I also understand the importance of taking your time and doing your research and coming up with a proper use of company funds. I don't think anything demonstrated that than the report from the accountants at MLS earlier today. Apparently, regardless of what some like to say, the city of Winter Park and you all as the commission are good stewards of our money. And as a city taxpayer, I'm appreciative of that. This is not about if I want the project or I don't like the design. That's not what I do. This is a place for my 4- and 2-year-old to go, be safe, learn, meet friends, and their kids to go. That's what this is about. We appreciate all the work that you do, and we look forward to getting this thing going. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson.
Good afternoon. My name is Deirdre McNabb. I live at 1860 Summerlin, and I'm actually came today to talk about solar, not about the library, but I'm going to talk about the library. Each of you are sitting up there, and everybody in here today is here for one reason. We love the city of Winter Park. We've got something really, really special here. I have not really followed the whole library debate closely, so I was interested today to see some of the pictures. And I will say that it frankly did not look to me like the city of Winter Park. I sat on the Sunrail task force to decide whether or not to have a station here. That building to me has the feeling of the village and the history of our town. It's human. The architecture, and it was fascinating to see some of the other projects and particularly the prices of the architect, they're a statement, they're huge. But they're also very institutional. It looked a little bit like Soviet-style architecture to me, a little bit like the library in downtown Orlando, which I personally have never liked, unless I'm trying to dodge a bomb, because it's so cement. So this town is so special. It's got so much history. And I guess what I would say to each of you is we have a new member of the commission. We have people sitting up there who give untold hours and time and care. And I would urge you to follow the wonderful advice of Benjamin Franklin, which is measure 3 times and saw once. This library will be the signature building when you are finished with it. It will be your legacy as commissioners and mayor. And I urge you to proceed cautiously, deliberately, and slowly, not rush it through. Make sure you have the public's input, and make sure it reflects our history, our community, and our humanity. And that's what I really didn't feel in that building. So thank you for giving the public a chance to speak, and I hope I get to talk in a moment again about solar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Sabrina Burnett. I'm the Assistant Director at the Winter Park Public Library, 232 Live Oak Lane, Altamont Springs. I wish we'll be happy when I don't have to get up in commission meetings anymore and get back to running a library, but I just want to reiterate what Brad said. We have been working with designers for years now. It does feel like we've measured 5 times before we're cutting it all. So we would like to ask the commission to move forward with this. We are waiting and waiting for this. Our community is waiting for this. When we talk about the square footage, anybody can come in my office at any time and I will tell you how the library made the decisions to reduce the square footage. We've reduced square footage in unassignable space, staff back of house space. we made the choice to eliminate the cafe as not part of our mission for the library. That was a huge amount of space. We had space for particular IT commons. We're now sharing services with the city. So a lot of the reduction in space was at our request. We also were able to utilize new features, like Russell mentioned, the wall shelving, which reduces overall square footage for collection, but doesn't decrease collection. I don't really have much more to add other than we're very excited and we would like you to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Sally Flynn, 1400 Highland Road. I really wasn't prepared to speak, so I'm going to say what I think I can say. I agree with Deidre. My real problem is it's not Winter Park. We need something that reflects our history and our character of our city. I'm a little amused at you being so concerned about your two children, because all we've heard about is how this is an international canopy to bring travelers in from all over the world. This is the first I've heard about our own children here. I think we need to really slow down and think before we go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Odahowski, 199 East Wellborn, Edith Bush Charitable Foundation. Trust is the currency of leadership that is of the utmost importance to a successful and vibrant community like Winter Park. Trust allows us to conduct business and civic activity with greater understanding, accountability, and speed than other communities. Nothing has greater influence upon our reputation than trust. As the largest private donor of the Canopy Project, with a commitment of $750,000, we have trusted the actions of this body, the Library Task Force, the Library Referendum, and all of the activities, including the successful $6 million TDT decision of Orange County. We have made financial and investment decisions to our detriment, but to the benefit of this project, to set aside the $750,000, trusting that the Canopy Project would go forward. More importantly, this grant is a matching grant. Donors large and small are trusting us that the matching funds will be available. To date, almost $500,000 has been certified, is ready to be certified, paid, and ready to be paid. These donors are trusting everyone involved that this project will go forward. A considerable amount of time has passed since its inception. When trusted projects like this Canopy Project are delayed or compromised, it negatively impacts the project, but it also negatively impacts future donors to future civic projects. The foundation has been patient. The matching donors to this project have been patient. We urge you to move forward with the approval of the construction drawings.
Thank you, David. Thank you for your comments and your support for our entire community. Okay, anyone else? Then we're going to close the floor to public comment. Randy, regarding timing, so let's talk timing. Somewhere in the packet, I believe I saw that there's a monthly increase if we delay this project. Was that in the packet, or is that just a conversation?
Excuse me, it is in the title sheet, and that number comes from our owner's rep, about $150,000 a month in inflation cost, if you will.
Okay, so we're at $150 a month if we delay this. From a timing standpoint, I know things shut down around the holidays. So let's say you're saying that we're looking at third week in October. If we put this decision off 2 months, we're really pushing it off until, we're pushing this off. If we push this off 2 or 3 months, we're pushing this off till 2020, averaging at least $150,000 $1,000 a month in increased costs. Plus, there's probably new pricing that's going to come out for the new year. Am I wrong?
No, sir, you're correct. The escalation is estimated $150,000. Nobody knows what that really could be. With the tariff announcement last Friday, those types of things can make it go up, or they could come up with a deal that makes it go down. We don't know the true number, but that's the estimate. But you're absolutely correct about the timing. And the reason we're shooting for that third week in October is so they can get the bidding done prior to the holidays, because things kind of shut down during the holidays. It's harder to get good pricing during the holidays, is what I'm being told. So that would then push it off until January before they start doing that pricing if we delay it too much.
And it's fair to say that delays caused by lawsuits and legal work have cost the city over $500,000 in legal fees as well as construction delays to date? Is that an accurate or fairly accurate number?
All the delays for any reason have cost money, yes, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Sprinkle.
Do we have an amount of money we have in this project already, since this was approved by the voters in 2016, right? Okay. Well, how much money have we already spent on this project? What do we have in it now?
Looking for Wes if he knows. $3 million?
And when was this building, when was it we approved it? It had to be 2 years ago that we approved the design, right?
The original design?
The original design. This is not new to most of us. We've been looking at this.
Yeah.
How long ago did we approve the design, Randy?
Yeah, about 18 months ago.
18 months ago, okay.
Okay. Mr. Seidel, any questions, comments?
I didn't have any questions, but I would like to make some comments, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
I'll try not to be too lengthy here.
You got commission reports for that.
Okay, for someone who's been involved in this library from the referendum until this point now, I will say it's been an interesting ride to be on. It's certainly, from the start, there were suggestions to make it a higher than a 50% vote, which it wasn't, and it was a 50% vote. And then, of course, we had that challenge, and we went through that process. And so I've looked at it as, we are where we are, and it's my job as a commissioner to now do what I can. I did not want to put the library in the park, to help make this a successful project. And one, I tell people, I couldn't give you an opinion on the building unless it's symmetrical, because I'm an engineer. Does the left side match the right side? If it does, I'm happy, okay? But it's, hearing both sides of the argument, I had a conversation last night with one of our colleagues here, or I should say one of our citizens that's highly involved, who's an engineer also. And the way I've looked at this process is, my job now is to protect the taxpayers of the city of Winter Park. And doing that by making sure that we stay within the budget that we have and we don't get into any more general fund dollars. Now, there's a possibility that we'll get into some CRA dollars, okay? But I certainly don't want to look at getting into a lot of CRA dollars for this project, because that's not what we talked about. But there are some economic benefits associated with the stuff that we're doing. And so if everyone has their packet and everyone looked at their packet, the big thing everyone talks about is what they voted on and what they asked for. And so I had them put together this little chart, which was, just a second here, but it shows the current library space, and it shows it's the reconciliation of square footages. Can we put that on the board for a second, please?
Where is that, Greg? Is that in the packet?
It's in the packet.
Yeah, it's
Towards
right
the
after
end.
the letters from the folks.
Oh, it's your
That's it.
spreadsheet?
Yeah, no, that's it, right there.
Gotcha.
Okay, so this is really, at the end of the day, this is what we're talking about, right? This is what we had as the existing, this is what ACI came and said, hey, and everyone said, this is what we like to do, and so that's where these numbers came from. And then we got into the design with the architect, and he presented a design to all the commission, and it was, there was a little buzz at the meeting where some people said, this is a lot more exciting than I thought, and I kind of like it now. And so it was a 5-0 vote by the commission that, okay, we're okay with this concept. And so if you look at some of the notes at the bottom, some of the things that, there was the one about the civic engagement space. Well, they've worked it out so that we can utilize the Civic Center for civic engagement space. As everyone sees our debates get bigger and bigger, we can now host them in the Civic Center right next to the library, still hosted by the library. So it's what functionality are we getting, and so is the square footage really that different at the end of the day? And so, yes, it is somewhat different. I will say we're not getting the square footage we thought we were getting, but to have an iconic architect design something, and does it look like the train station? It does not look like the train station. And then when we talk about, you know, the second thing was the impact to the park space. So originally there was a parking structure in that bond. And after it was voted on, they were able to negotiate a deal with the property owners to the other side to get the parking structure out of the park, which at the time I thought everybody wanted the parking structure out of the park. So they were able to do that. So now we have some parking that we can use after hours. So, you know, these are things to me where, you know, I think at the end of the day, this can be a very special place. Is it going to look like all the buildings in Winter Park? No, it's not. But if you look at a library on a park that has a kids' play center to it, to the gentleman that was saying he has his kids can go play in it, there's a lot of positives can come out of it. Would I rather have the library downtown? Yes, that was my original goal, but that's not what happened, and so I'm making the best of the things that I've got. So back to the budget question. I've been asking about the budget all along in the contingencies. And this next phase we're doing, and that's why I asked how much it's going to cost, is we're going to get an actual price for what everyone's been talking about. So all the numbers that Commissioner Weaver presented to us, we'll find out if it's really that high a cost, or what everyone's been telling us, this is how much it's going to be. So I don't want to make a decision not knowing what the cost is going to be. So I'm okay to move forward to this next phase. And, you know, if we're at 42 million and we're pretty close in the dollars, it's going to be hard to say no, okay? But if they come in and it's 50 or $55 million, we're going to have some discussions on how we can get back down to budget. So that's personally where I'm at. And if anybody wants to talk to me about it anytime, I'm always happy to have a conversation. But I do think that we have some opportunities with the land trust now to do some park expansion. And so I look at that as, okay, we can get this building in the park, and now we can look to expand the park itself. So there's some things to remedy the impact to the park. They're just not on the table just yet. So that's where I'm at. I've shared that with most people that I talk to. And I just want everybody to know that, and that's where I will be when we get those prices. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Vice Mayor Seidel, thank you for that comment. Do you think it's reasonable that we should have a more refined cost structure right now, since most of the design is done, and have ample time to review it?
But we still won't have the cost, and we'll still be in the same debate until they come to us and say, here's the price, Commissioner Seidel or Vice Mayor Seidel. I got to get used to that now. but until we actually have the price, it's hard to debate what ifs, and that's what I tell people. I mean, what if they came in at $30 million, you guys, because they're awesome contractors, and you know, the whole economy falls flat, and they're just happy to have a job, right? That's happened on projects. I had a $55 million job that in 2008 and 2009, it came in at $25 million. So that does happen. So, you know, once we get the price, let's have that discussion.
Okay.
Well, that's set to have it in October when we get the GMP. That's the point,
That's
correct?
when
Okay.
Yes, we'll have more information then. Okay, Cindy, would you please read the roll?
Commissioner Seidel?
Yes.
Excuse me. Commissioner Sprinkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Weaver?
No.
Mayor Leary?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for all the work. Thank you for all being here tonight to discuss this. Let's go to public comment. Anybody wishing to address the commission on anything that's not on this agenda, now is your time.
Well, I'm back. Deirdre McNabb, former president of the League of Women Voters of Florida, now...
Ms. McNabb, would you hold on one second? So I just want to be able to hear you as people, I think some people may be departing. So I want to give you your full 3 minutes.
Well, they're going to miss something very exciting.
Okay, I think we're good.
All right. Well, now I am the chair with Mary DuBois, who also lives in Winter Park, for the State Solar League of Women Voters. And I am proud to tell you, and David Odahowski is in the audience, thanks to his help, we have now seen $26 million in the state of Florida spent on rooftop solar because of the League of Women Voters and our partnership with Solar United Neighbors. We've done 6 co-ops in Orange County, and it is my hope that commissioners will consider at some point in the near future a co-op in the city of Winter Park. You will be interested to know. And I also want to commend you on your decision to take 10 megawatts, which is a huge amount of energy that is solar-based, from provider NextEra. That was a very forward-thinking decision, and I'm proud to be a citizen of Winter Park and proud of the many forward-looking ideas and practices that we are doing here. So what I do want to alert you to is there is a new white paper that is coming out. I don't think it's going to be presented today, but it says to you that, in fact, people with solar, and I am one of them, and there are only 65 in Winter Park after several years of our encouraging this. But the white paper says that people who do not have solar are subsidizing those who do, and that is false. The Brookings Institute and a large number of public utility commissions around the country have been studying this issue. Their findings are that people with solar actually benefit those without, because it means that there is less stress and strain on the grid, and new power plants are not needed, and that is the single most expensive reason for price increases. So you are forward thinking in taking 10 megawatts, which is a huge amount of energy that is solar, and you're also looking at possibly going solar in your wastewater treatment plant, which is a big step. I'm going to wrap up on that. On another topic, the Charter Review Commission. I've worked for 15 years in this state on voting rights, and this state has a long history of using single districts in order to prevent our minority citizens from holding office. I would like to urge you to consider the idea of adding 1 seat to your Charter Review Commission, which is a very important task force, and making sure that our African American community in Winter Park, who has long not had adequate representation, is given an opportunity to please sit on that very important Charter Review Task Force. Thank you. May I leave you with bumper stickers, which I know all of you will put on: solar, American-made energy. And by the way, I have solar on my roof, and I am seeing a 7-year return, at which point I will get 100%. So for those of you in the audience, I hope you will consider solar panels if you can.
Thank you, Ms. McNabb. Peter.
Thank you. I have some handouts here.
Okay.
These through. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you so much. Peter Schreier, 2436 Tioga Trail in Winter Park. I'm here just to give you a couple quick updates on activities at the Hannibal Square Heritage Center that we have now for 12 years partnered with the City of Winter Park and Crayola School of Art. I have good and not bad news, and I give you the good news quickly first. It's in your handouts. I just wanted to make you aware of an incredible new exhibit and project that we have on display at the Hannibal Square Heritage Center. It opened on April the 12th to attendance of 350 residents and visitors from throughout Central Florida. It's called the SAGE Project. It's a second phase of an exhibition and oral history project that celebrates the wisdom and the contributions of some of the elderly population here in Winter Park, specifically in Hannibal Square. It's people in their 80s and 90s. I encourage you very, very much to come spend a little time there, come and see the exhibit. Farrell Livingston, Mayor Daniels, and myself, with the project team, will give actually a presentation this coming Friday night. You have a handout on it, on the making of the SAGE project. The other thing I wanted to brief you on, you probably have seen it in the news, is the vandalism that the Hannibal Square Heritage Center has experienced over the Cinco de Mayo weekend. Our outdoor sculpture by renowned artist Rigoberto Torres was damaged over that weekend, and Of course, it's something we're very, very upset about, and we don't know who did it and why they did it. But I wanted to let you know there's been a tremendous outpouring of support in the community. I have a foundation who has talked to me and offered to help us pay for security cameras to be installed, which is actually something Crealde had on its plan anyway for this year, but we didn't have the funding for it yet, so we waited. So this is going to speed up that process. The artist is already in process of repairing the sculpture. So you're going to hear more for us. We're probably going to do a small rededication ceremony sometimes down the road. It is something, I think, for us, a community, to be vigilant and careful about. If you look at the internet, there's been a lot of attacks on vandalism on war hero monuments, really, in Florida, 4 already this year, including 2 in a park that honor World War II veterans, and there's others nationally. So it's just something that we really need to be vigilant about and be aware of. So thank you.
Peter, can I ask you, is
Yes.
there a way that people can find out how to possibly donate to help support the restoration?
Yes, when you go to the Crealde website, you can donate the funds to the Hanover Square Heritage Center specifically.
Okay.
For this cause.
So you can direct it to the...
Yes.
Okay,
you
thank
can,
you, thank you.
absolutely.
And
Thank you so
that
much.
website is it...
Crealde.org.
Crealde.org, thank you.
Good evening, Mary Daniels, 650 Canton Avenue. Just going to follow up a little bit on the SAGE project, which I was a part of, and it was quite an honor to do that. And I'm just going to share a couple of the residents that were honored, if you don't mind. And of course, I don't. Can we get over here?
Rusty, Troy's going to help you.
Okay.
Sandy, would you hold that clock, please?
Am I doing it right? Oh, gotta know how to operate it first, right?
Just reset it, it's good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cutson.
Well, you do that for me, and I just know where to put it. Okay, thank you so much. One of our resident that was honored, and you guys probably recognize him, David Walton. He's a military veteran, and he was one of the first African-American firemen hired by the city of Winter Park. He also worked for Rollins College, and he organized and installed the first information board for the sinkhole after we had the sinkhole there. He also organized collection of food baskets for the needy residents at Christmas, which the project is still part of the fire department, Winter Park Fire Department. So he is one of our citizens that was honored. And one of the other ones that I want to share with you, and hopefully you all will take a tour and visit the Heritage Center and you will see the rest. And I know all of you know who this is. This is the Felders. They were vendors at the farmer's market for 35 years. He is also a veteran, first-class sergeant. And he always wanted to be a farmer, even though he had other things. And when he retired from the military, he came back. He had purchased property in Edenville for a potato farm. And when he got out of the military, he sold that property in Edenville and bought a farm in Georgia, which he still owns today, and actually leases out part of that for, the solar panels. And they bought property in Altamont, where they currently live, but they were here in Winter Park for 35 years at the farmer's market, and we actually took their picture there at the farmer's market. So I just wanted to share that with you. And also, while I'm here, I also would like to encourage this commission to consider putting single-member district for the voters to decide how the elections should be in order to have proper representation for all citizens in the city of Winter Park. And I think single-member district is the way to go. So I'd like to also support that and hopefully encourage you to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Daniels.
LaWanda Thompson, 664 West Lyman, Winter Park, Florida, 32789, representing CFAR, Coalition for Access and Representation. Racialized outcomes do not require racist people. What we have in Winter Park is structural racism, public policies, institutional practices, cultural representation, working in variation to perpetuate racial group inequities. What we need to do as a city and as citizens is dismantle structuralized racism in Winter Park, Florida. Single-member district would help move us forward. Those in power cannot dictate what oppression is or what it feels like. The shoes are not your size to walk a mile in. To know the plight of misrepresentation, you can wish to fit those shoes, but you can understand it better if you realize they're too small and if you change your shoes and change your heart. Winter Park has a political economy, and its race is not a neutral terrain, and there are social forces and power relations involved. We are all participating in structural racism, and this is what's causing Winter Park to be racialized. Why? Because what racial group holds the wealth in Winter Park? Who holds the land interest in Winter Park? And who is on the government in Winter Park? The timeline shows us who has the power and who's been excluded and marginalized. Please put single-member district on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
My name is Tuan Nguyen. I'm a business owner. My brother over here is Tuan Nguyen. We own a salon called Tipsy Salon Bar. It's been open since 2017. We currently have 30 salon workers at this time. In our
Mr. Nguyen, would you just give me your address too?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 110 Orlando Avenue.
In Winter Park?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We have 13 franchise locations throughout the state of Florida and Georgia, and 20 locations coming on throughout Florida and Georgia also. Winter Park is our only corporate location, which means this is our model concept salon in our training facility. So we fly our franchisees and their employees to Winter Park for training. The reason why I'm here is to try to get a beer and wine license to sell beer and wine. Our concept is to have our clients relax with a glass of wine while getting a service at our salon, hence our name is called Tipsy Salon Bar. We've tried to apply for a license, but we're denied because we're a salon in the city of Winter Park. We also were given another reason that we didn't have adequate parking, but there are several businesses around the center that have closed down, so we should have adequate parking now. Currently, we're giving free beer and wine to our clients. Also, in the state of Florida, there's a law that requires that we give any person of age a beer and wine when they come to our salon if they ask for it. So if a busload of people come in and ask for a beer and wine, we have to give it to them. This has been very taxing on our business. So we're just asking for the city to allow us to apply for a a beer and wine license, not a liquor license, just a beer and wine license. We've had beer and wine license in our other locations since 2007, and have not had any issues in those locations. Most of the cities, they're the first time giving us a license for beer and wine in those cities. And they give us a special use exemption for our salon. So I'm asking the city for allow us to try to apply for a beer and wine license. So.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Is staff is familiar with this, I assume? Okay, so we can Well, I don't want to bog this down. We'll talk later, Bronze. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wynn. And thank you for opening your business in the city of Winter Park.
Will you explain to us what that process is when you find out?
So why don't we
Yeah.
hear from the public,
Okay.
and then we'll certainly, I think Bronze is going to be up here in a little bit anyway,
All right,
so we'll ask
thanks.
him more, Allison. Sure. Sorry, Ms. Chandler, go ahead.
Not a problem. Good afternoon. Beverly Neal was here with us, and she left. She left her yellow card and her information. Am I able to read that?
Sure, we'll
Okay.
allow that, thanks.
All right, so it's Beverly C. Neal. She's here with was here with the NAACP. Her address is 550 North Denning Drive, 121 Winter Park, Florida. On behalf of Beverly Neal, good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Beverly Colson Neal, and I reside at 550 North Denning Drive, and I am the president of the Orange County Branch NAACP. Thank you for allowing this time. Thank you for allowing this time to listen to your constituents regarding single-member districts. The residents are not asking for anything that is out of line or out of line with the Constitution. The definition of single-member district is an electoral district of constituents having a single representative in a legislative body rather than being represented by two or more. The Supreme Court ruled in a case in Texas regarding electing state representatives from county multi-member districts rather than single-member districts discriminates against African Americans and Latinos. This practice is the reason why there is no other choice than request single-member districts. You can work with the residents of Winter Park, or we can go to the courts where there's no other choice with all that is taking place in Winter Park without a voice for the African Americans. We have stood by and seen our community taken over by developers and the comprehension plan for development and new residents being ignored, which can cost those who have lived in our community for years to become extinct. There are important advantages to African Americans who live in Winter Park that will provide voters with strong constituency representation because each voter has a single, easy, identifiable district representative. Encourages constituency by providing voters with an easily identifiable representative. Maximizes accountability because a single representative can be held accountable and the chances of the representative can be reelected or defeated in the next election, and ensure geographic representation by understanding the culture, experience, wealth base, and to help stop gentrification. I am asking that you take the request serious and not use these forms as a means of pacifying voters. Beverly Neal Colson.
Thank you, Ms. Chandler.
Thank you. Barbara Chandler, I'm here with CFAR, Coalition for Access and Representation, 730 Minnesota Avenue, Winter Park.
Can I have the other paper, please? that you
Oh,
have?
yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. We are requesting that you instruct, on behalf of CFAR, requesting that you instruct staff to add to your agenda within the next 30 days consideration of a charter amendment ballot measure asking voters to decide between at-large and single-member district voting. Most, if not all, Winter Park commissioners have voiced support for self-determination and home rule for Florida cities. Self-determination for Winter Park neighborhoods and citizens, neighborhood home rule is no less important. It is well documented that at-large voting often results in underrepresented government, and that when single-member district voting has been implemented in cities and countries across the U.S., neglected neighborhoods and citizens have achieved long denied representation. Considering the results of Winter Park's voting method over the last 100-plus years, we at CFAR believe that the question is not whether this issue is worthy of consideration by voters. It clearly is. It is also clear that the consideration of a change to neighborhood home rule, AKA single-member district voting, is too far important to be delegated to an appointed committee. Instead, this proposal should be reviewed and shaped at the highest level by our elected leaders and placed on a ballot, giving Winter Park voters an opportunity to decide these representation issues for themselves. So today, I am here on behalf of the Coalition for Access and Representation to ask mayors and commissioners, will you post this on the ballot?
Mr. Chairman, this isn't the time that we have a back and forth, but we're happy to hear your comments. Do you have anything else, Mr. Chairman?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to close the floor to public comment. Ms. Frank?
Okay, so the first process question I have is the one about the beer and wine license. Who does that? How does that work? I mean, we don't usually get those up here, so just tell me how that works, okay?
Yep, in Section 58 of our Land Development Code, in our general provisions for non-residential properties, we actually have a list of business types that we do permit them to get beer and wine licenses, and it does specifically state excluding spas and salons. And then we also, in Section 10 of our code, we have different classes of businesses, and they have to meet specific requirements to get that type of a license. And none of that would apply to the salon. So that's why they have been denied.
Got it. So
it would take a code change.
It would take a code
Correct.
change.
So if 3 commissioners want to see that change, it would take a code change to do that. As Alice said, it's in the Land Development Code.
And my other process question was about what Barbara Chandler brought up. Isn't there I'm sure that there's some kind of a process for that, so I know I'm looking at the city attorney for anything like that.
Yes, Mayor, Commissioners, with respect to the single member versus at-large question.
Mr. Ardman, would you first address, I think there's some misinterpretation too of how the process works regarding the Charter Review Board. I mean, the Charter Review Board will be presenting recommendations to the City Commission.
Correct.
To decide whether or not to put on the ballot.
That's correct. So the public will be allowed to make comments and suggestions to the Charter Review Committee. The Charter Review Committee will go through the charter piece by piece at how they choose to do so. They will evaluate the public input from all sources that they choose appropriate. They'll make recommendations to the City Commission, to you all. Then you all will decide what you believe is important to put on the ballot for the voters to consider and vote upon. Certainly the commission can.
And that would include if they wanted to add something the Charter Review Committee didn't recommend.
Certainly,
yes.
yeah, you can ignore,
outside,
adopt, or change, add whatever you would like to do. It's your decision as the governing head of the City of Winter Park to make that decision. The Charter Review Committee merely recommends those questions to you all as the governing board.
Right now, regarding single-member districts, can you just cover what, because that's not just a change. I mean, that's a pretty involved process.
Currently, the
Are
Winter
you
Park
able to-
Charter provides for at-large elections, and you can present to the voters the question of whether you would like to have single-member districts, where each commissioner would represent a geographical portion of the city. There have been lawsuits involving at-large versus single-member districts, and there's a three-part test. I can send that to the commissions for your consideration. I believe Dan Langley and I will be addressing the issue, most likely with the Charter Review Committee as well, but happy to educate you on that. Just because we now have separate commissioner seats, you are elected at large throughout the city, does not mean you violate the Constitution or any of the provisions of the Constitution. There's a whole slew of case law that interprets whether you meet the requirements, whether or not, whether it's appropriate for legally requiring a single-member district. But at this point, it's certainly something the Charter Review Committee can do. You're not being forced to do that. If you're in violation of the law, it would be news to me. I've looked at it briefly. I've not done the analysis, so I'm not ready to render any kind of opinion on that. But from a policy standpoint, it's really up to the commission to decide whether you want to have a single-member district election process or keep it at large.
Commissioner Sprinkle, you still have the floor.
It still has to go to the voters, which would not be even eligible to go to the voters until next March, correct?
That's correct.
If this commission moves that
If
forward.
whatever we would get from the charter review that we would want to move forward and put on the ballot would go at that time.
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just happen to have a letter to you. It says, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to discuss as an item regarding our hardworking Charter Review Committee. At the first organizing meeting a couple weeks ago, a few residents requested that we consider expanding the committee so it could be more inclusive. In addition, the facilitator, Marilyn Crotty, mentioned that it is helpful if the Charter Review Commission could have an odd number. Further, she said that up to 17 members is functional. Currently, there are 8 members. Therefore, I'd like to recommend that we expand the Charter Review Committee to 9 members, with the 9th member ideally representing the west side of Winter Park. Thank you.
Who, is that from you?
Yes, to you.
Oh, okay. You said I'm reading a letter to you. I didn't know who it was from. I thought somebody handed that to you. Sorry. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I'd say I'm happy to add a person. That it does make sense to have the odd number, and then I think we can discuss.
That would be a good first step towards doing something with the charter in that regard.
I don't know how I feel about adding someone. I'm happy to, if 3 of us give the nod to have the charter. Brenda, you've been attending the charter review? No, you have not.
Michelle's doing that, and
Michelle's
she's not
doing
with us
that.
today.
She's not. Has anybody else from staff attended? Has this issue come up in front of the charter review?
It did, it's my understanding it did come up before them.
So it's
There are
being
speakers,
discussed.
there are public speakers allowed at those meetings also, and it came up,
So it's being addressed. So I don't see the need to add someone because I think the issue is being addressed. And I also think, again, choosing a member from one neighborhood over, we
Mr.
didn't
Mayor,
choose.
that's why I said we discuss who we add to it, and not specify a certain location.
But you're specifying for a specific issue. No,
I just
understand
asked-
the odd
yeah, I
number.
just asked to go ahead and let's get to an odd number, and then we
Weaver
can-
screwed it up by putting somebody else on. Let's.
Yes, but we did let him.
Yeah,
let's,
that's true.
Let's remember that.
I'm okay with that. Again, odd number, even number, I don't think it's really going to matter. But at the end of the day, because again, we can take up any of the issues that they may not decide to take forward to us. And I feel like putting one person on solely to address this issue is, there's nobody else that's on the Charter Review Commission to address a single specific issue.
I don't think that's what you're asking for.
Yeah,
He's
no, I
asking
look
for
at
an
it
odd
as,
number,
I look
not
at it as all
for a
8
single
people
issue.
are on there to address this issue.
That's right.
And
Just
we
as
should
we
have
talked
another
about.
one to
Okay.
make it an odd number of people,
Well,
that's
if
all.
that's the case, then if you're really, if odds are what you gamble, then if you're really in favor of odds, then I will bring back an appointee at the next commission meeting to add one more person.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And
Thank
I
you.
definitely support that also.
Sure. I didn't ask you.
It's me, but I told you anyway.
Let me ask, Allison, if we want, so talk again about the, having 3 commission members. I'm happy to bring it forward for discussion. I'm not sure it's going to go anywhere, Mr. Wins. However, I'm certainly happy to have the discussion. We don't know what the pratfalls may be of imposing it. So if we have if I have two other members, to at least have a further discussion, maybe at the next meeting, you could talk about how we would do it and what the possible impacts would be.
Yes, I would agree. I would like to know how we do, what the impacts are, because do we do it for every salon? And is it just every
Exactly.
salon can then?
That's, I think we just need to know what the impacts are. So can you bring that back at the next meeting? We have 3 to do that.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, next, where are we? We are
That is,
on,
at least the salon people are not tipsy, though, just the people in there.
we have 10C. Yeah, Bronx is not too worried about that.
Mayor, Commissioners, I'm
Brenda,
Brenda
thank
Moody,
you.
Public Works, and I'm Michelle Nooner's understudy today, though. She can't be here. She submitted a title sheet that outlines the discussion and recommendations of the Library and Event Center Task Force about the overall management of the campus, of the Canopy campus. Sam Stark, I believe, is here, and Terry Gaglione.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Tom McMackin's not here. And the task
Celebrating his wedding, his daughter's wedding.
His daughter's wedding.
Good reason to be absent.
I know. They conducted and staff, including Sabrina and Brad, and I saw Trish somewhere, Cynthia Wood, everybody. We met with a whole lot of people regarding many different elements of the campus management, including the actual library operation model, a catering model, valet parking, and a campus manager. So I think it all is outlined in your packet. I don't know if you want to hear from, we're here to answer questions. If
It is.
any of us are here.
No, I don't think so. I don't think. Sam or Terry, if we do have any questions, would you mind if addressing if we do? Great. All right. Well, let's start up here then. I think the recommendations have been laid out there. So let's start with anyone. Commissioner Sprinkle.
I will move the task force recommendation, which was the number 2 or whatever it was, I think. Is that right?
Catering was number 2.
I would move the task force recommendations, and then we can discuss each one of them. How's that?
If you don't mind, I'm just going to read through them really quickly so I understand. So that would be catering, preferred catering, select approximately 4 to 6 vendors of various price points to serve as exclusive caterers to the Canopy, allowing more control over kitchen and facility maintenance. For valet parking, the task force is recommending contracting 1 valet service. If approved, RFPs would be issued competitively every 5 years. Contract would likely be issued for 1 year with possible 4 1-year renewals. And again, that can all be worked out too as we move forward. And for the campus manager, the task force is recommending approval of the proposed campus manager job description, advertising the position, and placing a candidate into that position as of October 1st to begin engaging in policymaking, marketing, training, budgeting, reserving, and staffing of this facility before the grand opening. That is your motion?
It is, and I would,
There's one more. Pardon me,
whatever
there's
the
one more. Go
October
back.
1st date was and all of that, I just want that to fall under Randy's guidelines. I don't want us to be responsible for any of that. He's going to come back to us with
I
how
was-
that to work.
I was going to ask if staff was okay with that, but
Yeah,
let me,
I
Brenda,
don't
you
want-
mentioned another one?
There's another one north of the catering issue about the actual library.
Oh, I'm
contract.
sorry. Operation, I apologize. Hybrid model. That expands the city's role in building maintenance, system maintenance, and outdoor maintenance, as well as scheduling and campus promotion. This arrangement establishes the library's role as a provider of all things inside the library building, including programming, as well as collection, maintenance, and ownership. Combined, the library and city would commit to collaborating on a certain number of events per quarter. Okay, so that is your motion. I will second that, Commissioner Sprinkle.
I would, however, yes, I would, however, like to soften the one about who they report to and when they report and all of that, and put that right back into the city manager's hands, because I don't want us to be in any form or fashion delegating that.
I don't think we can. So Randy, I'm assuming that's the way this would go down?
That's correct. That would be in accordance with the charter.
So you're on that. Great. Any other questions? Any questions for staff? Okay, let's open up the floor to public comment. Anybody wishing to address the commission on this item that I've lost here? Okay, we'll close the floor to public comment.
Hey, I just wanted to say I appreciated all that work
Yeah.
for them to come up with this, because that was a great plan. And like everything, it is somewhat fluid, and there may be changes that come through sometime, but I thought that was a lot of work, and I appreciate the fact that they've made these suggestions as a way to get started.
Yeah, thank you, I agree. Commissioner Seidel?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure on this hybrid model, Randy, that, you know, the number 2, that is there any language we need to make sure that that reports to you, since the library is separate from the city, correct? And this person would be
I think you just
completely-
confirmed it would.
But we have to have some language in there, right? Because you said it per the charter, and I don't know that the charter would address this. I guess I'm just asking. It just seemed a little.
Well, the charter basically says all employees, all those employed by the city ultimately report to me. There will be different reporting structures within, and, you know, I will work with the library board to make sure, you know, if they have concerns about this employee that I'm dealing with, you know, I'll work directly with them on that. I don't know if we need to change the language or not. But
Okay, so the campus manager is going to report and be paid
To
by
the
the
city.
city
To
and
the
not
city.
out of the library fund.
That's correct.
I guess that's what I was kind of, because I guess some of those details in the library budget, we're going to have to see how those morph from them being an independent building to being part of a campus, right?
Right.
Okay, good. Cindy, please read the roll.
Commissioner Seidel?
Yes.
Commissioner Sprinkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Leary?
Yes, thank you. 11A, this is on second reading, folks.
I'll move it.
Okay?
Oh,
We have 3. He doesn't have to read it, but we do have to hear from Mr. Ardeman. So
Like me to read all 3 first?
if you
Mayor?
would, just
Glad
read
to.
them all. We'll have a simultaneous public hearing, but we'll take separate votes on all 3.
Ordinance number blank, and ordinance amending Chapter 58 Land Development Code, Article Roman numeral 1, Comprehensive Plan, and the future land use map so as to change the single-family residential future land use designation to a parking lot future land use designation on the east 33 feet of the stormwater retention area serving Israel Simpson Court, more particularly described herein, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date, and ordinance number blank, and ordinance amending Chapter 58 Land Development Code, Article Roman numeral 3, zoning and the official zoning map so as to change single-family residential R-1A district zoning to parking lot, PL district zoning, on the east 33 feet of the stormwater retention property serving Israel Simpson Court, more particularly described herein, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date, and ordinance number blank, an ordinance of the City of Winter Park, Florida, authorizing the lease of the eastern 33 feet of the city-owned stormwater retention area serving Israel Simpson Court, having Orange County tax parcel identification number 0622 30 3724 13001, providing for conflicts and an effective date.
Thank you. Commissioner Sprinkle, did you move it?
I'll move all 3.
Okay, I'll take that.
I'll second.
Okay, great. Any discussion, Commission? Let's open up the floor to public comment. Anybody wish to address the Commission on this item? Now is your time. Seeing none, we'll close the floor to public comment. Cindy, would you please read the roll, individual, please? First on the land use.
Commissioner Seidel?
Yes.
Commissioner Sprinkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Leary?
Yes, and now on the zoning?
Commissioner Seidel?
Yes.
Commissioner Sprinkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Leary?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Seidel?
Yes.
Commissioner Sprinkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Leary?
Yes, thank you. Okay, Bronx, you're still up. We are at 11C.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, commissioners. While I have the mic, I think it's important that we add one more shop to the list of somewhere that shouldn't be able to serve beer and wine, and that is jewelry stores, because I remember walking in with an idea in my head on what engagement ring I was going to purchase and walked out of there with a very different ring. So just thought I'd plant that seed in your head. And I will
Is that the excuse for the haircut, too?
Yes, this is it. Actually, this is the shortest you will ever hear me talk about Orange Avenue, and every one of my fellow staff members can vouch for this, because every time I get a mic, I tend to go on about this. But I would recommend adopting the resolution to create the Orange Avenue Overlay Steering Committee,
Yeah.
and I would be happy to get into any detail you
That one
would
was
like.
pulled, right?
No, the steering committee was not pulled. 11, we're on
Oh,
11C.
okay, I have the original one printed. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
11B was pulled.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have the first one that went up there before the second one went up there, and then the third one went up there.
Yes, sir.
Questions for staff? Commissioner Sprinkle.
I'll move this forward.
I'll second, I was very excited, it's still on each, I was gonna ask you why it's not.
I'm trying to remember.
As I recall, you wanted us to name somebody?
Yes, ma'am.
Each one of us to bring a name forward, but not tonight.
Happy to, Mayor.
Sorry, I was
Oh, yeah.
one behind here. So would you please read that before, and then
Yes, sir.
I'll recheck on the motion. Thank you.
Resolution number blank, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Winter Park establishing an Orange Avenue Overlay Steering Committee providing for sunset and an effective date.
Thank you. Is that still okay with the maker and the seconder?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. Questions for staff while we're at it?
And to answer your question, if we do have recommendations on members tonight, the reason we wanted to get this was to try to go get on it as quickly as we can, but if we need to wait till the next meeting, just more than happy to do that, whatever the commission would like to see.
So remind me what the total is, 11?
We would have 11. Each of the commissioners would bring one representative, and then we thought it would be a good idea to have a representative from each of the key boards and committees that are entrusted with making recommendations to the commission: Transportation Advisory Board, Economic Development Advisory Board, P&Z, member of the original Winter Park Visioning Committee, a member of the Community Redevelopment Agency Advisory Board, and a member of Keep Winter Park Beautiful and Sustainable Advisory Board, and allow staff to work and try to find a member, because with their meeting schedules, we may be a month or two out before we can get a board or committee finalized, and we'd like to get started.
Okay, so I'm not prepared to appoint anybody today, Mr. Weaver? No, okay, so, and plus Commissioner Cooper's out anyway, so why don't we wait till next meeting, but just bring a name back for appointment if this moves forward. Mr. Seidel, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest we just send them to Bronson as soon as we have them, and then because there could be duplicate folks, I'm assuming we'll talk to people, but.
I mean, that however you want to handle it, that's
Happy
fine.
to.
You can certainly counsel Bronze on it with,
Okay.
Ms. Sprinkle? No? Nothing? Mr. Weaver?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bronze, what's the selection criteria for these, from these boards? Who makes those selections?
That would be made, the city manager or his designee would be the one making that selection, because they're previously approved by this commission to serve on these boards and committees. The biggest criteria, quite honestly, is who can make this time commitment over the summer months, who can meet every other Wednesday night for 2 hours. And also, we have a great deal of expertise in a number of different areas that will bring a lot to this open and transparent process. I'd like to credit Ms. Mooney with bringing this idea to me about having the kind of across-the-board representation. So I cannot take full credit for that, but I think it'll create an open and transparent process where the public can be involved, can hear everything, and then we have a good cross-section of the community representative on those boards and committees. And really, availability is probably criteria number one, because we want to make sure we have enough people at each meeting to have a quorum.
Okay, so the city manager is going to nominate people based on their availability?
It'll be staff probably bringing it to the city manager to approve.
We will contact the chairman of each of these boards and basically either suggest or seek volunteers from each of these boards.
Yeah.
So, Bronze, can you just explain briefly how this overlay affects or enhances the quality of life for Winter Park residents?
We haven't written the overlay yet, sir, so this is why actually I'm asking for this this board and committee. All we've done so far is we've gotten the public input, and so this would be a very in-depth process where we start from the very beginning of how we got to where we are today, the past work that's been done, really evaluate why we have this part of Winter Park that hasn't developed and has been economically stagnant for for years and years and years. And then through an education process, we ask the tough questions about what should be done here, why hasn't it worked, what will work. We want to talk to the small property owners about what are your biggest issues, what would help your lives to be better down here. We have large property stakeholders that would like input on the process. We have people in Mead Gardens, we have people in Orwood Manor and the surrounding areas who would love their own special place. We have a lot of traffic safety issues in the area. We have a lot of pedestrian safety issues in the area. We certainly have a lot of bicycle and ADA issues in the area. So by having a community-wide community plan that's not just created by an outside body or a consulting firm, we create a special district at the staff level versus what typically comes in, which is someone who has a large tract of land, comes in and asks for a certain development district to be created. We're kind of doing it the opposite way, where the city takes the lead on that, led by our citizens.
You're getting pretty good at this, Bonds.
Well, thank you, sir.
Okay, let's open up the floor to public comment. Anybody wish to address the commission on this item? Now is your time. Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward. Cindy, and the only question the only thing I have is, if you all can think of a better way of appointing, that was a recommendation from staff to appoint that way. We can certainly, it works for me, but if, Mr. Weaver, you brought it up, if you'd like to appoint in a different manner, we can certainly engage that discussion.
No, it seems to have changed to a more reasonable selection method, so I'm happy with it. Thank you.
Okay. Cindy, would you please read the roll?
Commissioner Seidel?
Yes.
Commissioner Sprinkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Leary?
Yes, thank you. D, who is handling that? Randy, is that you? There is no official resolution, so it's just whether we move this or not.
That's
Wes
correct.
said he was going to do it.
Yeah, Wes is hiding back there.
I
But
thought Wes-
basically, this opens us up to be able to invest in CDs and other things within additional banks. So when he goes to get quotes for CD rates, that type of thing, this gives us one additional bank to utilize.
Okay, and they're a bank known to this community for a long time. So we'll look for a motion.
I'll move it.
I'll second it, and I'll also add that we were their first major account when we opened our company. My wife used to work with those folks. So, but I checked. I don't have to recuse myself, just so you know.
This might be a first, this meeting.
That $7 he's got in there is not a conflict.
It's funny, I know a lot of guys at Seaside, they haven't said anything about you guys being clients.
Exactly.
Okay, let's open up the floor to public comment. Anybody wish to address the commission on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the floor to public comment. Cindy, please read the roll.
Commissioner Seidel?
Yes.
Commissioner Sprinkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Leary?
Yes, thank you. Commission reports. Mr. Seidel.
All right, so Saturday morning, I guess there's two events, because I'm going to be doing something at the farmer's market. That's what's on my calendar, correct? The 40th anniversary there.
Yes, it
And then,
is.
so sounds like I quickly
10
have.
o'clock.
10 o'clock, and then I got to quickly run over to Hal's event at 10:30, I believe that was.
10:15.
10:15. Okay, we'll see. So anyway, just wanted to bring that up. And then also, just wanted to bring up a couple things on this charter review that, with regards to the at-large districts. I don't fully understand if we have the single voter districts, like, then are we trying to get money into our districts and not the other districts? Right, and so it's kind of, there's some pros and cons, and so that I'm interested to hear kind of what those are. But I can think of a pro, is that we wouldn't have to spend as much as we are on our elections, because they'd be for a much smaller district, although some people might choose to spend that much. But your number of flyers would go down, so that would be a pro. The other item I wanted to bring up, Randy, had to do with our budget, and it's you remember when they were going to pass the law about the $25,000 additional Save Our Homestead? And we said we want to be ready for that, and if they don't pass it, we want to be able to lower the millage rate. So are we still on track for that with all the good news I heard today?
We didn't vote to do that.
No, we had talked about if they were going to pass the homestead, that we wouldn't need to raise the millage rate to cover it, that we were going to plan our budget that way. And so that was something we all talked about.
Comment was
So
that it would
is-
be about a 750 hit on our annual budget. We didn't decide to.
Right, are we
We
still?
didn't make a decision to.
Correct, have we
raise
still
the
been
millage.
planning for that, because we were doing some cuts to plan for that. That's the conversation we had, that's all.
Yes.
Thank you, Randy.
That's it. Commissioner Sprinkle.
Okay, so we had a League of Cities meeting last week, and I had the opportunity to get this as the 2019 Home Run Hero for Commissioner Carolyn Cooper, so you all can pass it down. They honored her as a home rule person. They had 5 or 6 people, and she is always very active with the league, and it was an honor to take that for her. And then I know that Todd and Vice Mayor Seidel and I got to spend 4 more hours in ethics training.
Hey, wait a second,
thereafter.
before you go off there, I just got a letter that I was selected to.
Oh, they didn't, I
They
didn't get anything for you, okay? They said, we know we have somebody here from Winter Park, so I got up, but
It's
I
because the
didn't-
second year in a row I missed that meeting.
I guess so, yeah. All right, so the other thing, and Clarissa, are you still here? Is Clarissa still here? She is. So Clarissa and I both signed up for the medical marijuana seminar last Friday, which was probably the most fascinating day I have ever spent, because there are so many misconceptions about how that is being utilized, and we will both tell you it is the most highly regulated place out there. And see, I get this same look from you guys every time we talk about this. You look at me like, do you think you're back in the 60s? I want you to know that if you ever have the opportunity to learn about this, and Clarissa will also say so, it was so fascinating. And the other thing they talked about, just briefly, was, you know, we have a huge opioid crisis, and our chief of police will tell us that even that touches us here in Winter Park too. So there are a lot of other things out there that they're looking at. I was just fascinated at how they control a plant. I mean, they actually, from the minute they cut that plant and they put it in dirt, they have controls on it, and they know everything that happens with it, and they keep all of those records. So it's a highly regulated industry at this point. So it was an interesting day. I don't know if Clarissa wants to mention it, but we both learned a great deal.
Notice I turned in a receipt for Taco Bell on the way home. I'm just saying.
There were many, many comments. We also had some cities there that were talking about what it has done in their city, so it was very interesting.
No coincidence you were just diagnosed with glaucoma, right?
That's why it's hard to talk about, because people always think the worst, and it's not. It's just, it is a definite industry that's going to be deregulated in 2020.
Mr. Weaver.
Well, maybe the salon can apply for that permit, since we won't give them beer or wine. So I'll join you at the farmer's market this week, and there is a Casa Feliz event for board appreciation this Wednesday night at 5:30. And another event at Casa Feliz on the 16th at 6:30 for historic homeowners.
Actually, the country club.
I don't have that one.
Thanks for telling me that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have conflicts for just about every event. And Special Olympics on Saturday, so I'm out. I won't see you Saturday morning, but wish you the best. Thank you all. A lot of work went into this. This agenda was fairly small, but there was a lot of work that went into it. So staff and some of our friends, thank you all for all the work that's been done on this. Folks, we're adjourned.